So in this video, I'm going to talk about cleaning your isopropyl alcohol wash and basket. And you can see in the bucket here clumps of partially cured resin. This is after about 5 weeks of use for about 143 models, and it was about 2 liters of Anycubic Eco resin that I used for those models. That was a variety of models, many different sizes. You want to make sure that you work in a well-ventilated area. As you can see, we're in the shop here. I've got the garage doors open and the fans running, ceiling fans and box fans running. And so first we'll set up with some rubber gloves. We've got filters handy, both coffee filters and mesh filters. So I'm preparing a bucket with an old 5-gallon bucket lid so that I can place the filter in a funnel in the lid. And then we're preparing to open up and remove and wash the basket. The basket was covered with a thin film of partially cured resin. Now I believe this was due to the combination of the volume of models that I washed over the course of 5 weeks, but also the fact that, as you saw in the first frames, I'm storing my wash bin right next to a window. Now I do this on purpose so that I'm hopefully partially curing some of the resin and that it will settle to the bottom. And so I'm just using a shop towel and wiping off all of that partially cured resin. It was lightly coating the basket and the frame, and then just putting that aside. Then we'll transfer the dirty isopropyl alcohol, and we simply move that into a bucket. First removing the rotor, and this is using just a ball end T Allen wrench. It's a single screw in the bottom of the basket. Just be careful not to strip it. There's no reason to use a lot of force on this. There is a bearing, a sealed bearing in that rotor, and a single screw securing the rotor to the bottom of the wash basket. So with that screw comes a lock washer, and then the rotor comes out. And I did notice some rust around the sealed bearing, so I'll keep an eye on that to make sure that that doesn't seize up. Then we clean the rotor and the hardware, and this rotor was very caked with resin, both partially cured and some liquid resin. And so I used shop towels, paper towels, a Teflon scraper so as not to damage the plastic rotor, and an old toothbrush, and just scraped all of that cured resin off the rotor and into a trash can, brushing all that off. And then I did use compressed air to clean that rotor off. And then clean the lid and bucket well. And in this case, we're using, again, paper towels, making sure we get all of the pieces out of the bottom and out of the threads where the screw holds the rotor to the bottom of the wash bucket. After wiping out most of the large pieces of cured resin, then we're using paper towels and fresh IPA, isopropyl alcohol, to wipe out the rest of the basket. And we're using 91% isopropyl alcohol available at most drugstores, and just wiping out all of the remaining partially cured and uncured resin that was stuck to the sides. As the alcohol dried, you can see how much resin was really left in that isopropyl alcohol that we dumped out on the side. There's quite a large amount of residue left on the sides of the bucket, and so it's important to use the fresh isopropyl alcohol to clean that off. Lastly, we filter the isopropyl alcohol. Now this is time-lapsed and we actually filtered multiple times. So we first do a coarse filter, and this is simply a paint filter. It's the same filter I use also when I'm filtering my used resin out of my vat to pour back into a bottle to use later. In this case, we're just using the coarse filter to filter out the large chunks of resin from the isopropyl alcohol. I filter back into the other bucket again then, the isopropyl alcohol using coffee filters in a plastic funnel. And this is a very time-consuming process, so I didn't film the whole thing. But after the coarse filtering, I then filtered again using coffee filters to filter out the remaining partially cured resin. The result is a pretty clear IPA that we can reuse and clean again in the future. Thanks for watching. Post any comments or questions, and don't forget to like and subscribe.